Don't worry, despite the title, this is not a creepy video. Or is it? Most of us like a good fictional monster movie, probably for the most part because they are in fact fictional. I mean, no one wants a creepy possessed doll like Chucky in the real world. But what if I told you that many monsters, including Chucky, were actually based on real people? Here are 10 famous monsters based on real people. Number 10 is Chucky. And the nightmares begin. Featured in the 1988 film Child's Play, the twisted story of Chucky the doll seems to have been influenced by a legitimate case of doll possession. In the film, a 6-year-old boy named Andy Barclay discovers that his favorite doll has been possessed by the ghost of a serial killer. Throughout the film, Andy is blamed for several deaths, which really happened at the hands of the toy doll. But this has several parallels with the true story of Robert the doll. Given to a young boy called Eugene who lived in Florida in 1906, the doll supposedly ran riot, throwing objects around and having malevolent intent. It was discovered that the doll had been given to the boy by a servant who had allegedly been abused by the boy's family, and the possessed doll was the servant's revenge. Think about that next time you look at your stuffed animals in your house. Number 9 is Sauron. Sauron in Lord of the Rings is one of the most famous monstrous villains in literary history. However, there's a good argument to be made that he was based, believe it or not, on Adolf Hitler. In the book, Sauron is a fallen angel who rises up as a tyrant to control the people of Middle-earth. While Tolkien has stated that he doesn't like people relating the book to real events, it's difficult not to draw parallels with Hitler. Sauron rises up twice in an attempt to dominate, so did Germany in the First and Second World Wars. Hitler himself was a soldier in the First World War, and many say that he could almost hypnotize with his voice. Sauron is also known as a great persuader. Middle-earth later goes on to become Europe itself, where Hitler rose to power. Now, Tolkien purists might disagree, but then there are others that might look at Sauron as an uber-Nazi. Number 8 is Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Written in 1886 and adapted into many films, the shape-shifting figure of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde was based on a real person. In the story, Dr. Jekyll is a moral, upstanding citizen, but when he drinks a potion he has developed, he contorts into the sinister Mr. Hyde, who has no guilt to stop him from committing evil acts. Mr. Hyde then leads a notorious debauched life at night. But this sounds eerily like the story of William Deacon Brodie. Brodie was a well-respected gentleman in Edinburgh in the 18th century, but at night he was obsessed with sex, gambling, and crime. Despite becoming the leader of a trade guild and a member of the local town council, Brodie was arrested and hung in 1788 for his behavior. It was reported that he walked to the gallows dressed in the finest of clothing. Well, at least the guy knew how to go out in style. I do identify with this though, because you've got Matthew Santoro, and then you've got the knowledge whale. Number 7 are the Hounds of Baskerville. Outside of his tussle with his arch-nemesis Professor Moriarty, Sherlock Holmes' greatest fictional case was the Hound of Baskerville. But what's fascinating about this case is that it may have been based on a real-life event. In the story, a huge dog hunts people down on an English moor. The writer, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, most probably based some of the events on the life of Richard Cabell. He owned a large estate in the English countryside in the latter half of the 17th century. Legend has it that Cabell used his hounds in an attempt to kill his wife, but he supposedly died at the jaws of his own dogs who turned on him. Stories persist that phantom ghost hounds roamed the moors where it happened, urged on by Richard Cabell himself, who many described at the time as a monstrous and evil man. Not something you want to watch if you already have a fear of dogs, but I would recommend the movie Cujo. Family friendly! Number 6 is Dr. Frankenstein. Frankenstein is one of the most famous horror stories of all time, but what's really scary about it is that Dr. Frankenstein's life was inspired by true events. The good doctor appears to be an amalgamation of two people. The first is John Conrad Dippel, who lived in Castle Frankenstein in Germany. Dipple was an alchemist who was obsessed with life and death. Rumors still persist that he experimented on human cadavers, but we know for a fact that he did experiment on animals and even claimed to find the elixir of life. Dipple's life was mixed with experiments of Italian Giovanni Aldini. Aldini believed that he could reanimate a human body by using electricity. After experimenting on a man who had been recently executed, it was reported he managed to make the body move and contort, but nothing more, thankfully. Number 5 is Dorian Gray. Published in 1890, the picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde was influenced by one of his lovers. In the book, Dorian Gray sells his soul so that a painting of him will age and wither, but he won't. He can then live his life to excess and never fear the consequences. As his immoral acts mount up, the picture ages and takes on a horrific form, representing how Dorian really looks on the inside. Oscar Wilde met John Gray not long after starting the novel, and John was a poet, but like Wilde, he was fascinated by the decadent movement. The decadents, like John Gray, believed that all desire should be pursued without worrying about morality of such actions. While John Gray eventually left the decadent movement, his influence on Wilde was preserved forever in the character of Dorian Gray. I'm starting to get some wrinkles. I might have to get me one of them pictures. Number 4 is the Headless Horseman. The Headless Horseman in the Legend of Sleepy Hollow is terrifying, but just as the story blurs the line between fact and fiction, the horseman himself was based on a real person. Just 9 miles from the real town of Sleepy Hollow, there was a skirmish during the Revolutionary War of 1776. British artillery and horses moved against the Americans. The American army fired a cannon at the British, and a German mercenary who was fighting on the British side was reportedly decapitated by a direct hit from a cannonball. He was then buried in an unmarked grave in a nearby cemetery. These events were recorded in the journal of General William Heath, who was there, and it was likely that Irvine Washington read this journal and used the account as inspiration for one of folklore's most enduring monsters. Number 3 is the werewolf. The werewolf appears in almost every culture in either shape or form, but a number of real-life people have influenced the creation of this mythic creature. Many tribes throughout the world adorned themselves with animal pelts to appear more fearsome in battle. The Pawnee people, for example, dressed themselves in wolf hides to blend in with their environment while spying on enemies. It's also possible that genetic disorders such as lycanthropy, which makes hair grow on the face, and porphyria, which can turn teeth red, erode facial features, and cause delirious behavior, all added to these myths. That, while accounts of wolves raising human orphans such as Romulus and Remus, who founded Rome, were added to the stories, slowly shaping the story of the werewolf to match our deepest, darkest fears. But don't worry, werewolves aren't real. Sorry about that. Number 2 is the Boogeyman. The Boogeyman is another monster which appears throughout many cultures, from the Sackman of Brazil to the Babu of the Mediterranean. Like the werewolf, these old legends of a malevolent creature who comes to children has been shaped by real individuals along the way. One such person was Albert Fish, a serial killer who focused his abhorrent crimes on children. In the 1920s, he began preying on the young, snatching them away whenever he could and subjecting them to bad acts before murdering and eating them. Referred to as the Boogeyman in the press during his trial and after his execution in 1936, Fish's crimes live on in infamy, and his lack of remorse at the pain that he caused only added to the myth that there's a creeping figure out there in the darkness ready to snatch away children if they're not careful. And number 1 is Dracula. You knew this was going to be on the list. Dracula is the most famous monster of all time. Countless books, films, video games, and even TV shows have been made about him. But one of the most captivating facts about Dracula is that he may be based on someone who actually lived. Vlad Tepes was his name, and he ruled an area of modern-day Romania between 1456 and 1462. He was notorious for his ferocity in battle, his unyielding will, and his brutality. Often referred to as Vlad the Impaler, he enjoyed avoid impaling those he defeated on large spikes. Massacring tens of thousands in his lifetime, he finally fell in battle. His enemies despised his cruelty, but after his death, rumors persisted that his evil could overcome even death itself. Much of this was then used by Bram Stoker to create Dracula, the most enduring monster of horror fiction. So that's it, creepy monsters based on real people. Kinda like I was based off the Knowledge Whale. Or was the Knowledge Whale based off me? You'll never know. Anyway, hope you guys have a fantastic day. Let me know what you thought of the video in the comments. I'll see you next time. Goodbye now.